The afterlife. The idea that our existence is so significant that it does not end with our death, but instead we continue to exist eternally in a different realm. It is a concept that is as old as long-dead civilizations, and it has stuck around ever since then. The ancient Egyptians believed in it, so did the Greeks and the Phoenicians, as well as a long list of religions and cults, including the Abrahamic faiths. These are unfalsifiable beliefs by their very nature. There is no way to prove or disprove that we have souls separate from our nervous systems. And in the same vein, I cannot prove or disprove that these souls congregate after separating from our bodies. But what I can and will do is poke so many holes in the Islamic story that after watching this video, I don't see how anyone can believe in it. Or at the very least, you will understand why I can't believe in it. My name is Apostate Aladdin, and I make some of the best videos discussing Islam critically, among other related topics, so consider subscribing if you haven't already. There is a lot that doesn't make sense about Jannah, the Islamic heaven, and you can comment your favorite fishy details below. But today I'll focus on the absurdity of one of those details. Did you know that Jannah has multiple levels that get better the higher you go? What is the difference between the levels if, according to this verse, everyone gets what their soul desires anyway? That is an excellent question, and if you'd like to know what I think is the best answer, stick around till the end. But first, when a child called into Sheikh Asim al-Hakim's show to ask him the same question, here is how it went.
Musa from Pakistan.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu, Sheikh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
So, Sheikh, in Jannat there are many levels, but in the first level we can have anything we want, my parents told me. So if we can have anything we want in the lowest level, why are there so many levels?
First of all, we don't know what each level has. Nevertheless, definitely there are benefits that differentiate the lower levels from the higher levels.
So let me get this straight. First of all, he doesn't know. Second of all, he definitely knows.
First of all, we don't know. Nevertheless, definitely.
That's funny, though to be fair, he knows not the specifics of the differences, but definitely that they exist. Okay, interesting. Like what differences?
So for example, if you look at the quality of things, definitely the quality of the higher levels are better than the lower levels.
What does that even mean? Would the wine in the higher levels taste sweeter? Are the couches softer? Will the heavenly maidens fake their pleasure more convincingly? What does he mean by a difference in quality? And on the highest level, you have handcrafted, locally sourced artisanal Jannah. Oh, yes, very nice, very good. On level 1, you have Jannah from Temu. What does Jannah and an online Chinese retailer have in common? They both employ child labor. Say there is a difference in quality, the inhabitants of the lower levels wouldn't know or perceive that difference because everyone gets what they want and everyone is satisfied. They're not even capable of feeling jealousy in heaven. So from their perspective, it's the best wine they ever drank and the best lay they ever had, regardless of which level they're on or what their neighbors above get. So this is a non-answer because there is essentially no perceivable difference.
The quality of the higher levels are better than the lower levels.
I don't know how he knows about this quality disparity since he doesn't cite a source, but let's take his word for it. Things in Jannah Pro are higher quality than Jannah Lite.
Definitely.
What else?
If you look at the proximity and how close you are to the Prophet ﷺ and to the companions, those who are in the higher level are definitely better than the ones in the lower level.
Okay, so the proximity to the Prophet and his companions is a selling point. This assumes that Muslims should care about being close to them, which tracks within the Sunni Islamic narrative. Muslims are supposed to idolize this group of men and hope to meet them in heaven, a group that includes mass murderers and wife-beaters. I personally never wished to meet Umar ibn al-Khattab, for example, because he seemed like a bully with a short fuse, or Ali, who burned people alive. So I guess I would have rather been in the lowest level just to be away from them. So far, I'm not sold on this whole level arrangement. And when he says, if you look at the quality,
if you look at the quality of things, if you look at the proximity.
I know it's a figure of speech, but it's worth reminding you that we can't actually look at anything ourselves. These are claims on top of claims. It would be more accurate to say if we were to go to heaven and look at the quality. Anyway, what else does Sheikh Asim have to say about this question?
In Surah Al-Rahman, Allah mentioned 2 levels. وَلِمَنْ خَافَ مَقَامَ رَبِّهِ جَنَّتَانِ. And in the second level, وَمِن دُونِهِمَا جَنَّتَانِ. So these 2 levels differ as Allah describes and gives us a description of what will happen to the people there.
He doesn't cite the verse or the details, so I'll do it for him. And bear with me because this gets a bit tedious, but it is important to be thorough. Here are verses 46 onwards in Surah Ar-Rahman. But for him who fears standing before his Lord, there are 2 gardens. You are rewarded not just for being a good person, but for fearing God's judgment, emphasizing subservience and fear. When I talk about how the fear in Islam messed with my mental health, Muslims say that I was taught the wrong version of Islam. Well, here are the words of the Quran itself. The author loves fear. Anyway, the verses continue. But for him who fears standing before his Lord, there are 2 gardens. Gardens of spreading branches. Okay, so the 2 levels have trees with branches. And in those gardens are 2 springs flowing, wherein is every kind of fruit in pairs. Reclining upon couches lined with silk brocade, the fruit of both the gardens near to hand. So you get easy access to fruits and water while you lounge on a sofa. Therein are those of modest gaze, whom neither man nor jinni will have touched before them. That's referencing Hur al-Ain, the virgin maidens promised to Muslim men, in beauty like the ruby and the coral stone. And beside them are 2 other gardens. Wait, am I reading the wrong verse? No, it's a different verse about gardens again. Okay. Dark green with foliage, wherein are 2 abundant springs, wherein is fruit, the date palm and the pomegranate, wherein are found the good and beautiful, fair ones close guarded in tents, again with the heavenly horse, whom neither man nor jinni will have touched before them, and again with the virginity, reclining on green cushions and fair carpets. Okay, we get it. Couches, fruits, springs, women. Twice. What else? Blessed be the name of thy Lord, mighty and glorious. That's it? Is this really the miraculous Quran? Repetitive ramblings about trees and hoes? And not the gardening variety. The point is, nothing in this surah tells us the difference between the levels of Jannah. All we know is that the Quran promises 2 gardens, possibly 4, with all the things listed above. Things which supposedly exist on every level. Things which people can wish for if they wanted to. So why was Asim quoting this verse at all?
In Surah Ar-Rahman, Allah mentioned 2 levels.
Did he think we can't read Quran ourselves? Well, we can, and we have, and it's full of nothing. So what's next? You have to read it in Arabic to understand it? وَلِمَنْ خَافَ مَقَامَ رَبِّهِ جَنَّتَانِ فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ ذَوَاتَا أَفْنَانٍ فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ and so on and so forth. What now? Gardens don't mean gardens and hur don't mean hur? Notice how the theme of this entire surah is things in pairs, which makes me think that the author just went along with the theme and rhyme rather than describing a real place that definitely exists. By the way, the tafasir, the exegesis, they explain these heavens as gardens rather than levels, even describing one of them being gold while the other is silver. Just imagine how gaudy that would look, like the penthouse of the Trump Hotel. Allah's perfect paradise looks like when money can't buy taste. I'm getting a bit carried away, so let me remind you of the question again. Why are there multiple levels in heaven? If you're looking for an answer in the Quran, you're not going to find it. So does the Sheikh admit this? Does he congratulate the kid for an astute observation? Take a guess.
وَمِن دُونِهِمَا جَنَّتَانِ. So these 2 levels differ as Allah describes and gives us a description of what will happen to the people there. So lazy people only think about, well, if I can guarantee to enter any level of the Jannah, I don't care, even if they put me near the doormat, I want to be in Jannah. This is lazy. And this is, with all due respect, stupid.
Whoa, Sheikh, calm down. Why are you getting all worked up? My guess is it's because he's forced to confront his cognitive dissonance and that feels uncomfortable.
And this is, with all due respect, stupid. It's like someone saying, listen, the passing grade in the exam is 50. I want to get 50. I guarantee you this person is going to fail. If he had the aspiration to get 100 of the 100, he may get 92, 95. So you shoot for the stars.
He goes on this tangent about how aiming for the lowest level is stupid and lazy. He set up a straw man just to call the question or the person asking it stupid. Answer the goddamn question. Don't berate the person asking it.
This is lazy.
People wonder why many Muslims have a stifled sense of critical thinking. It's because they're made to feel inferior for asking a good question. And I hope that this kid's sense of curiosity isn't held back forever by people like Asim. If somebody gets all defensive and angry when you ask them for details, ask yourself why. What are they hiding? And why can't they just give a good answer?
Boss, it says here that my compensation level depends on sales performance, but we all get health benefits and as much money as we want. So is there a real difference between the levels?
Of course there are differences, obviously.
All right. Do I get better health insurance coverage the more I work?
Yes, you do.
So do I not get full coverage at level 1?
That's a misconception. You do get full coverage at level 1.
Then what's the difference?
Better doctors, I guess? Better hospitals?
Do I get bad doctors at level 1?
No. All great doctors. The best of the best, actually. Better than you can ever imagine.
So what's the difference? What do I get when I work harder?
What a lazy attitude and a stupid question.
What the hell, dude? I'm just trying to understand here.
Do better, dumbass.
Okay, geez, calm down. So when do we get paid?
Later.
How much later?
After you die. We'll pay your next of kin, actually.
This is a scam, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a scam. I understand that it's better to aim for a high level in Jannah to put a safety margin between you and Jahannam, but this should make you question the disparity between the lowest level of heaven and the mildest level of hell. If the difference of one sin could land you in either heavenly bliss or the worst torture you could ever imagine, does this judgment system make sense? Is it fair? Is it really the best God could come up with, or is it just a scare tactic?
So you shoot for the stars. And the Prophet said, alayhi salatu wasalam, if you were to ask Allah to the Firdaus, the highest level of Jannah, Al-Firdaus, because it's the highest level and it's in the middle of the Jannah. So it has two advantages. It's not in the lower level, it's in the highest level. And of the highest level, it's in the middle exactly. And this is what righteous Muslims, hopeful of Allah's mercy, would do.
Hold up, why is Al-Firdaus being in the middle an advantage? Distances shouldn't matter at all in heaven. It's not like commuting time is a factor, is it? Do we really have to worry about traffic up there? We could just teleport between places if we wish to. And the proximity to the Prophet should have no bearing on how often you can meet him. Again, it's not like commuting is a time-consuming chore. If he wanted to, he would. But none of this makes any sense anyway. Let's try to visualize this in 3D space. So you got level 1 on the ZX axis, then level 2 higher on the Y axis, and level 3 above that, and so on and so forth, till you reach the highest level where the VIP section, Al-Firdaus, is in the middle. And that's advantageous for some reason.
Definitely.
Here's what I find odd about this model. Unless each level has finite dimensions, I don't see how there can be a middle to anything without it being relative to something else. So according to hadiths, God's throne is above the highest level. So given that Al-Firdaus is in the middle, the question begs itself. Does that mean you'd be right under the middle of God's underside? Listen, this listing just hit the market. Huge mansion, gorgeous garden near the Prophet's house, and get this, it's right under the crack line, smack dab in the middle. So what do you say? Should I make an offer? Congratulations, it's yours. Never mind, it's gone. No, insurance doesn't cover it. It was an act of God. How big is heaven anyway? Let's do some quick math. This verse says that it's as wide as the skies and the earth. Not only is it finite, but the author clearly thought that the earth was huge and flat. As we all know, thanks to scientific advancements, the observable universe is massive. Compared to that, the size of the round earth is negligible. So why mention it at all? It's like if I said this man has more money than the GDP of the United States and my salary. What's the point of mentioning my salary if it's as big as a rounding error? Or like if I said my backyard is as wide as the kitchen and this toothpick. That doesn't make any sense. Clearly, the author of the Quran thought the sky and the earth were parallel and similar in size. So heaven is as wide as the earth, roughly 8,000 miles. You're not going to find that answer on Islam QA. And since this verse says that Muslims sit on raised couches watching people in hell burning, we can assume that there's a finite limit to heaven at least on one side where it meets hell. So if Firdaus is in the middle of heaven, it's the same distance from hell as it is from the other edge of heaven, around 4,000 miles away. So is that the selling point, being 4,000 miles away from hell? I know I'm overthinking it, and I know I'm being pedantic, but I don't see why I shouldn't. If we can handwave all these absurdities as metaphorical or beyond comprehension, why the hell are they mentioned to begin with? You can't just say it's metaphorical every time you spot a flaw. The more reasonable explanation is that it's the result of the limited knowledge of a human of his time. I said that I'll tell you the real answer to the original question, and I will, but I'm not done critiquing heaven just yet. Here's another flaw. There are hadiths about how a particular action or dua gets you a house in Jannah, or a tree is planted for you in Jannah. So the question becomes, what's the point of that if you can wish for those things in Jannah anyway? This answer on Islam QA boils down to quoting a verse that says, Allah is not asked about what he does, but they are asked. In other words, shut up and stop asking questions. You're embarrassing Muhammad. If there's a difference in quality between levels of heaven, imagine how funny it would be if people started a black market to smuggle things from the higher levels. This is high-end Firdaus honey. Special price for you, my friend. And I can't help but notice how this heaven is made specifically to entice men in the Arabian desert, who, to be fair, were the target audience of Muhammad's preaching. I mean, silk couches and tents, who else could that be for? Lush gardens and rivers were rare and expensive to the average Qurayshi. Fruits in the desert were a luxury, especially before the age of technology and globalization. Now it doesn't sound all that impressive. I know I'm privileged, but my local grocery store has 6 different types of red apples alone. And 2 is the most Muhammad could imagine? I'm not being too snobby about heaven. I'm demonstrating how clearly short-sighted and man-made this description is. Please forgive me for what I'm about to say. So if you're looking for all-you-can-eat fruit, wine, and punani, just move next to a Walmart and a brothel. But what they don't have at a brothel is that premium, untouched, virgin variety of women. God, I feel disgusting just saying that. It sounds like something from the Epstein files, but it's in the Quran, literally. لم يطمثهن إنس قبلهم ولا جان. What is this obsession with virgins if not an indication of a man's insecurities? Even mentioning explicitly that jinn haven't touched them. Do Muslim men have to worry about their wives being pleasured by a better jinn? I know I said you get 3 wishes, but if it's pleasure you're after, I can go all night, baby. I joke, but this is a real problem. There are believers who teach young girls that if they leave the house without a hijab, they might entice a jinn who will possess or assault them.
So, jinn possess people for 3 main reasons. Number 1, out of love. And this is extremely important for our sisters especially. So, for example, you're leaving the house and you're not wearing the correct hijab. You're not properly covered. Or you are wearing a lot of makeup and you have beautified yourself and you're leaving the home. Then don't forget that there are other creations besides men. I had a case where a jinn had possessed a sister. She was waiting at the bus stop and the jinn fell in love with her.
It is wild that in the lordless year of 2025, people still believe this stuff. There are humans in space orbiting this earth this very second, which would have blown Muhammad's mind, but we're still talking about jinn touching our women?
Jinn possession is a reality. There are those who deny it. However, it has been agreed upon by the consensus of the scholars, and it's something that can be sensed as well.
Scholars of twiddling their thumbs, what a waste of a life. And I believe that the commodification of women is reinforced by silly ideas like Hur al-Ain, and by very real and harmful concubinage. You cannot convince me that Islam honors and respects women while enticing men with brainless sex robot versions of women in heaven.
No, babe, Allah's not saying that women are sex toys. He's saying that there will be sex toys that look like women. Huge difference. How huge? As big as the universe and the earth. And comparing them to shiny objects like rubies and corals? Literal objectification, not even a stretch. The justification you might be missing is that women supposedly aren't as interested or motivated by sex as men. That's why Allah promises Hur al-Ain to men. But it sounds like Muslim men haven't unlocked the full potential of a satisfied woman with a high sex drive. Otherwise, they'd realize that women want and enjoy sex just like men do. So where are the Hur al-Ain for women? Just imagine the Prophet watching his wife grind on a magic mic looking dude. If that offends you, ask yourself why. Why is that offensive, but a woman watching her husband grind on dozens of hur somehow isn't? None of this takes into account people who don't fit neatly into the heterosexual categories, but that's a whole other discussion. Will queer people get whoever they want in heaven, or will they be fixed first and then given a harem only if they have a Johnson? The last thing I want to say about this surah is that it is so comical how between every other verse is a verse that says, "Which of your Lord's favors do you deny?" It sounds like a hype man next to Muhammad punctuating his every sentence. فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ? And luscious gardens.
Yo!
And fruits.
You tell him.
And virgins.
Take that, disbelievers.
which of your Lord's favors do you deny? As if any of these verses is demonstrable proof of a favor that I'm actively denying. No, man, I'm denying the whole story because it's fishy and nonsensical. Promising me that I will get laid doesn't change anything. After all is said and done, it is finally time that I tell you the real reason why the Islamic heaven has levels. This is my hypothesis so far. The levels exist to introduce a bit of nuance to a simplistic judgment system, and to cater to the competitive and jealous nature of humans, and to incentivize more and more sacrifice without it ever being enough. Let me give you an example. Ali prays every fard prayer on time, and he doesn't miss the sunnah prayers either. He fasts more than just Ramadan, and he memorizes the whole Quran word for word. He even signs up to fight with Muhammad's army. Ahmad, on the other hand, he prays, but he misses some prayers every now and then. He fasts Ramadan only and hasn't tried to memorize the Quran beyond what he needs to pray. And he finds excuses not to go to war when Muhammad calls for his troops. If they are promised the same heaven, why should Ali bother? Why shouldn't every Muslim just phone it in and feel safe enough to die as a believer? I suspect that is why Muslims are told to never feel like they've done enough, because a difference of one sin could be all it takes to end up in hell, and being by heaven's doormat shouldn't be enough either.
I don't care, even if they put me near the doormat.
You need to constantly sacrifice and push yourself to worship harder, to gain points with arbitrary multipliers, and if you can't keep track of your balance, you might as well keep adding to it, just in case, because it is safer than risking hell. As this hadith shows, nobody's deeds are enough to let them into heaven. You can only get closer and hope that Allah's mercy carries you the rest of the way. So whatever you do, you gotta do more, because it's not enough. Perhaps this still makes sense to some believers out there, but it doesn't to me. And to be honest, I don't think it ever did. Because when I was a Muslim, I relied on the assurance that it doesn't need to make sense, that we'll never comprehend God's wisdom or brilliance. لا يسأل عما يفعل وهم يسألون. If Allah exists and He'll torture me because I don't see the brilliance and multiple tiers of heavenly booty, then that's just entrapment. I'm not sorry that I can't believe in a thirsty desert fantasy. There are still a few dubious concepts I haven't touched on in this video, like all the contradictory hadiths about the number of levels, or who's promised the upgrades, or the nepotism behind it, or how in heaven God strips us of all negative emotions and our boredom with infinity, and our concern for the people in hell. And at that point, are we even the same people? Are we people at all? Or are we some sanitized robotic versions of the souls we once were? That's just some food for thought. I understand why the afterlife is such an alluring idea, especially to people who suffered a lot of loss and hardship. It is also a product of our ego, thinking that we are central to the plot behind the world that we see around us. And it's very understandable. I mean, look at us. We're clearly a lot more expressive and communicative than any other species we know of. It's no surprise that we think we're so special that we were designed and loved and tested and punished. But despite all that, I don't think there's a good reason to believe that an entity behind all this spoke to us through prophets, and specifically one subset of non-false prophets. So should we shield people from their mortality, or should we find ways to make the most of the reality that we live in? Is the afterlife a healthy coping mechanism, or does it devalue a believer's life because they're holding out for something more? I'll leave that up to you to decide. All that's to say that you can believe in souls or that there is life after death, but you probably shouldn't live as if that is certain. And you certainly don't have to sign up wholesale for all the absurdity in one specific expression of the afterlife, like the Islamic one. If you'd like me to dissect more videos by Asim al-Hakim, tune in to next week's livestream. It'll be a lot of fun. The link is in the description. And if you haven't watched my previous video, I spoke about how this channel was targeted and my safety was endangered. Since then, I've received so much support and comments and messages and contributions to the GoFundMe campaign, and I am so grateful for that. The more that you help me, the better equipped I'll be to make these videos. So consider supporting me if you haven't already. Thank you for watching, and thank you to my patrons, YouTube members, and donors for keeping this channel going. I could not do this without you. And as always, think critically and think for yourself, and consider watching one of these videos next. If you don't, then...
This is lazy, and this is, with all due respect, stupid.